Get ready to stand on guard for the
Prohibition is over, Saskatchewan. Ask Lucky Bastard today how you can make Canada's ultimate Caesar, True North and Strong. Featuring Lucky Bastard's premium dill pickle vodka, LB's famous bacon rimmer, and bacon bitters. It's not a Caesar if it's not Lucky Bastard. Order online or stop by 814 47th Street East. And tonight, why not mix your Caesar with some Lucky Bastard?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Hockey Hacks podcast, a proud member of the Hockey Podcast Network and the official podcast of Left Wing Lock. I'm Devin Davidson, your host. With me, as always, Bruce Gunther. Surprise visits from both John Enns and Tyler Holman tonight. And a special guest, the creator of the Apples and Ginos podcast, the originator of the Zero-G draft strategy, mother of dragons, and what else you got going on, Nate? Oh, and now a new contributor for Yahoo. So congratulations on the new role, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm glad to be here. It was a good time last year, so I'm back to reprise the role.
Good stuff. Well, we're happy to have you on to help us with our episode tonight, our top 10 centers and wingers. And we thought, you're a guy that knows a lot about fantasy hockey, so why not do a mailbag episode? And it seemed to go over well. We had lots of questions submitted, so that should be fun as well. Before we move on too far along the path, let's mention Lucky Bastard Distillers. They opened in 2012 and inspired from a lottery win. Lucky Bastard Distillers is proud to be the first distillery to operate in Saskatoon since Prohibition. Home of Canada's ultimate Caesar. Mix your drink tonight with Lucky Bastard. Use promo code HockeyHacks to get 15% off your next online order. Shipping available across Canada. So, Tyler, if you're looking for some dill pickle vodka, give it a shot. Alrighty. Well, let's get right into it. John, you're here tonight, finally, so I'm going to let you do the honors of John's list. You take it away, my friend.
All right. So, for this week's member of the list, I got Mike Modano. I don't know. As a kid, I wasn't a huge fan of, well, don't get me wrong, I hated the Stars. But for some reason, I also wasn't a fan of American-born players. And don't ask me why. I don't know. But, yeah, no, so he was kind of like the perfect storm there. So, yeah, no, I didn't like him.
I can appreciate not being a fan of the Stars. Like, as an Oilers fan growing up, nobody liked the Dallas Stars.
Yeah.
Mike Modano's a hell of a player, though, so I don't know.
I don't know.
How about that cameo in the Mighty Ducks? I mean, that was some fantastic acting.
How did you not love the jersey just flowing down the ice?
Flapping in the wind.
Yeah. Like, you could hate, like, Richard Matvichuk or Sergei Zubov from those times. Not Mike Modano.
Well, it's kind of weird now because now it's like, oh, like Patty Kane and them, like, there's a lot of great American players that I actually like. And probably shouldn't say it on the podcast, but the only time I'll cheer for the Canadians over the Americans is World Juniors.
Oh, my God.
So Olympics, yeah, I'm cheering for the Americans. Sorry to say it.
What?
I wasn't even away in Kitimat. I just didn't want to hear John. That's where I was.
Valid. So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Well, you know what? You provided us with some good detail there tonight, John. So thanks.
Yeah, for once.
On short notice, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Okay, well, we got lots to get to here tonight, so let's move on to headlines with the Hacks, September 19th to the 26th. Bruce, take it away.
All right, first item on the list is, the oldest, and everyone knows, Nathan MacKinnon got paid. He has signed an 8-year, $100.8 million extension with the Colorado Avalanche. It's an AAV of $12.6 million, just a shade higher than Connor McDavid to make him the highest paid player in the NHL.
Did anyone else find that a little bit asinine? Like really $100,000 over McDavid just to say you're the highest paid player in the league?
Probably.
And
it's all by design.
I mean, somebody was going to do it at some point.
Yeah.
Like,
they were.
It may as well be McKinnon. At least McKinnon's like in the like top 5 conversation in the league. So at least it wasn't somebody who like just kind of defaulted into being the next guy. So, I mean, if somebody's going to be it, it might as well be him.
Well, and Matthews on his next contract is going to get paid too, and it's
Yeah,
on and
but-
on it'll go.
Yep.
He'll be 100,000 more than McKinnon.
Yeah. Honestly,
As
I'd probably be happy if it was only 12.7 as a Leafs fan.
As
Yeah,
Dubas
really.
has to trade away his entire roster just to pay him.
Yeah.
Speaking of guys not getting paid, Jason Robertson will not be at the Dallas Stars training camp when it opens. Robertson, an RFA, is still waiting on a new contract.
So Nate, on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you right now for Jason Robertson and for his line mates?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some concern at this point. You've seen it go poorly with guys like William Nylander, even Brady Tkachuk last year. Kind of started pretty slowly and took a while to get into the swing of things after his kind of brief holdout, I guess, to start the year. So yeah, there's some concern. I don't know how much. Like, Robertson, to me, is the most talented player on Dallas. He should be, like, their top point getter most seasons at this point. I don't think Heinz or Pavelski is really going to take that from him. So when you don't have that player, then obviously there is some effect. I don't know if it'll be, like, so much that you'd really change where you're drafting Heinz or Pavelski or any of those guys, but definitely there will be some effect. So you have to at least consider it.
So I was looking at their contract situation. Do you think there's a scenario like, does Pavelski walk next season? Because I think he's on the last year of his deal. He's 36, 37. And to fit Robertson in, like, do they maybe sign him to a short-term bridge deal and then offer him a better contract next year?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what they're trying to do, and that's not something Robertson wants to do. It's hard to say. I haven't really seen any details come out about what the asks are and anything. It's not like this is Toronto or Edmonton where every detail of everything gets leaked. So, yeah, I don't know exactly what the specifics are. I kind of feel like Pavelski might be one of those guys who would stick around on a 1-year deal year after year and just kind of take less money because he's kind of made his money at this point. But it definitely could be, at least in the mind of the GM there, that he wants to try to squeeze a few more years out of this core with Pavelski still there and Jamie Benn and some of the other older guys they've got.
Pavelski is 38, by the way.
38.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you.
He's old.
He is old, but
Should have retired
still-
years ago.
I don't know. He's still playing pretty well.
He's a member of John's list, so that's, yeah.
I think we're all on John's list at this point. Word out of Philadelphia is that Ryan Ellis will not play this season for the Flyers. Sorry, Mike.
Or maybe ever again.
Or maybe ever again. That's another rumor that's swirling around too. Is that this could be a career-ending thing for Ellis? So that's yikes. Like, what else do you say? On the injury train, Gabriel Landeskog here is not. Excuse me. Coach of the Avalanche said that Landeskog won't be skating anytime soon, so that's not a good start to the season for Colorado.
Especially for Nate over there who drafted him. Was that second or third round, Nate?
Third round, yeah, started the third round, like literally 2 days before this comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously it's hard to say anything specific at this point with no real news about when he might skate or specifics on the injury even. So hard to say, but definitely you got to bump Landeskog down a bit for now. It does open up some interesting opportunities. You got to think that Nichushkin or Lehkonen will get a look on the top line. Maybe they even split up Rantanen and McKinnon with Landeskog out and try to, develop two lines that way. There could be a lot of interesting stuff to come out of it with Colorado. And obviously whoever gets on that power play one now with Landeskog off, that's definitely going to be a sweet spot to be in. So I have to watch the lines coming out of training camp. But if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, obvious 3, and then probably Nichushkin and Lehkonen would be my guess at this point.
And I think for Landeskog, he comes at a better price point now in drafts, a little bit better, right? So that's an opportunity for some value there.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Okay.
Vincent Trocheck has been lined up next to oh my God, I can't pronounce anything today. Next to Panarin at second line center and found himself on the top power play unit. early in camp, but obviously encouraging. I even noted here too that they Lafreniere was playing wing on the second line too, so
Good placement for him.
definitely, because at the beginning of camp they had the kid line back together, so they're moving some people around to see what's working and what's not. Speaking of that, the Florida Panthers went with Verhaeghe, Barkov, and Reinhardt on the top line on day one of training camp. Great news for Reinhardt's fantasy value, not so much for Matthew Tkachuk. Yeah, they have him a little. Is it second line or was it even third? They had him on.
Should be on the
Check
fourth
the
line.
I thought I saw a report today that had Tkachuk and Reinhardt down with Bennett on the second line. I thought they were really trying to mix things up. So
Yeah.
it might just be early in training camp. They're trying out different stuff. Obviously, you have Huberdeau leaving, so they're probably going to mix guys around until they find something that really works. So I think Verhaeghe and Barkov probably stick together, but the rest is your guess is as good as mine at this point, I think.
They missed Duclair too, because that would be Duclair's spot, would it not be?
Right.
If he was healthy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Golden Knights news. GM Kelly McCrimmon told the media that Nolan Patrick, Shea Weber, and Robin Leonard will not play in 22-23. Mark Stone started camp in a non-contact jersey, but I did read today he was practicing in a regular one.
Does anyone here have any appetite for Mark Stone at this point? Like, I feel like he's a more valuable player in real hockey than he is in fantasy, and he's hurt an awful lot. Like, Nate, what's your appetite for Mark Stone these days?
Yeah, I honestly haven't had much Mark Stone in fantasy for the past number of years. He's kind of one of these a little bit kind of empty calorie guys. Like, he doesn't, if you're in a league that counts a lot for shots, he's not really a high volume shooter. He's more of an efficient shooter. Even then, I don't have him projected for a ton of goals or anything. So it's one of those things where I'm looking at Stone, and I'm looking at another guy who I actually think has like 35 goal upside, and I'm just always taking the other guy. And if he gives me hits, if he gives me shots on top of that, then you at least have some kind of floor with Stone. Like, the way Vegas has been going, like, I think Stone's a great player, but you got the injury risk. Is he really going to mesh that well with Eichel? We only had a short sample there last year. You assume they'll figure it out as two great players, but there's a lot of assumptions with Vegas right now. So I've been pretty much steering clear of Stone at cost this year.
Okay. Bruce?
One more tidbit of Vegas news here. It looks like Alex Pietrangelo is given the first crack at power play 1 duties early in camp. Also something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. So, Nate, does that swing your take on those two defensemen there between Pietrangelo and Shea Theodore? I mean, it's early in camp, right?
Yeah, it's obviously early, but you got to think about it for sure. I didn't have them. I was actually pretty surprised. When I did my projections, I had Theodore at 2 minutes 45 seconds power play time on ice and Pietrangelo at 2 minutes, and it only came out to Theodore at a 53-point pace and Pietrangelo at a 47-point pace. So there wasn't actually that much difference between the two to start. And yeah, if Pietrangelo is going to play more minutes on the top power play than Theodore, then obviously you'd see that flip. So yeah, definitely got some more interest in Pietrangelo and pretty much not touching Theodore where he's being drafted right now.
Good stuff.
Somebody will take him. Devin.
I'm not that desperate for Shea Theodore. No, I like him if he's playing power play 1, but if he's not, no thank you.
Some news out of Winnipeg. Rick Bowness said the Jets defenseman will have the green light to play offense this season, which is good news for anyone that drafts Josh Morrissey or Neil Pionk. So it'd be nice to see them pick up some offense this season.
It's funny because we had TJ Branson on last week, and he was talking about Pionk and Morrissey and how they're both maybe a little bit underrated. And then this news came out. So I think, yeah, there's definitely some more intrigue around both of those players now that they've kind of been given the green light to do something offensively.
Be nice to see. Big help from the back end for them. They need it.
Yeah.
Drew Doughty's wrist is 100% healthy. He's good to go for the season. Nick Suzuki will miss approximately 2 weeks with a lower body injury. The Oilers finally got Ryan McLeod signed to a 1-year deal. They're now officially non-cap compliant. Is that what someone posted the other day after signing McLeod? So, no surprise. Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov will platoon to begin the season in Toronto. Although Samsonov did have a shutout in his first ever appearance for the Leafs.
So, on that point, Bruce, Nate's like, what's your take on the situation in Toronto this year? Like, do you like one more than the other, or do you think it's just going to be an even split or a ride the hot hand situation?
Yeah, I think Sheldon Keefe has definitely shown that he'll ride whoever's hot. We had Eric Chalgren come up from the minors, and he had a good couple games, and we rode him for a while, probably longer than we should have, honestly. So I think he's shown that he'll ride whoever's hot. That being said, I do think like you don't take on Matt Murray's contract if you're not interested in giving him the first crack at being more of a starter. And I do think that Sheldon Keefe wants to have a starter. I don't think he's a coach who particularly likes alternating back and forth every other game. So I think Murray will probably get 2/3 of the starts or whatever, 60% of the starts at the beginning of the year, and they'll kind of see how he fares with that. And then beyond that, it'll probably be performance-based.
So as a Leafs fan, I have to ask, are you optimistic with Matt Murray in goal, or are you a little bit...
I mean, it's hard to be confident about Matt Murray and what he's put on record the last few years. I'm willing to give him a shot. Like, Jack Campbell didn't really do us any favors towards the end of last year. I think it's been pretty well documented, but up till December, he looked like a Vezina candidate, and then beyond that, he was well below league average. So, if he can even be relatively decent, then the Leafs at this point actually have a decent enough defense that they can cover up some stuff. So I am drafting Matt Murray pretty much at cost, or even maybe a little bit above where I've seen him go in a lot of places. Right around that 10th round where I usually start looking for my first goalie. Just the upside's so huge. Like, if he does hit, the upside is so big on a team like the Leafs, where you figure they're at least a top 10 team in the league, so you're going to get those wins. And if he manages to put together the save percentage and everything along with that, then you're really looking at a big hit later on in the draft. So where you can get him, I think he's a value play. And you can do that with Samsonov, but I do think that Samsonov's not going to get enough games early in the season that you're going to kind of just end up feeling like you're wasting a roster spot with him.
Okay. Good stuff. Bruce, what else we got in the news?
Last bit of news tonight, we found out today Brock Besser of the Vancouver Canucks will be out for about 3 to 4 weeks after undergoing hand surgery. I didn't hear specifically what the surgery was for his hand, just that it was on his hand.
Yeah, he can't seem to catch a break, this guy, the last couple of years. And Bruce, you and I were talking earlier, I really felt like he had a chance to bounce back this season. Like, obviously, he had some personal stuff he was dealing with last year, but yeah, this is too bad. Nate, are you still looking at Brock Besser a bit later in the draft, or later than his ADP would indicate?
Yeah, I took him actually again a little bit before this news came out in the same draft that I took Landeskog in. So I guess I got a couple of Band-Aid boys early in the season. But I do think Brock Besser has it in him. Like, even last year when he was pretty terrible, at least in terms of converting his chances. They were still running him out on the top power play and everything. It seems like they're really committed to him up there. I don't think, like, even with all these guys like that they've brought in, Ilya Mikheyev, Andrei Kuzmenko coming over from the KHL, like, unless somebody really tears it up, I think that spot on the top power play is pretty safe. So as long as there's no lingering effects from the hand injury, then I'm still pretty comfortable with him. I got him in the 9th round of a 14-team league, and I'm pretty comfortable with him there. If he falls even further now because of the injury concerns, then I'm really quite all right taking him and throwing him on the IR for the first couple weeks or whatever it takes.
Yeah. You mentioned Andrei Kuzmenko. What's your take on him? Are we looking at the next Artemi Panarin, or are we looking at something far from that?
Yeah, it's so hard to say, right? It seems like we never get enough information on these guys when they're coming over. I've heard people talk about like the equivalencies, and the equivalencies look really good coming over to the NHL on what he might be able to do. But most of the like eye test based guys that I've heard talk about Kuzmenko say like this isn't Panarin. This is somebody a tier below. Probably not like a total flame out like Gusev or some of these other guys we've seen, but maybe more of a middle six or a second line kind of guy rather than a true top line player. And you always wonder too, like coming over, like is there an adjustment period? Some guys seem to take to it right away and they don't need any adjustment period, and other guys it takes a little longer. So I definitely think like Kuzmenko is really free at the end of drafts in a lot of places, and you can definitely take worse shots just on the off chance that he really hits, but it's not someone that I'm like going out of my way to acquire.
Okay, good stuff. Bruce, that does it for headlines.
That's it.
Alrighty. Well, let's move on to the next segment here. We're going to cover our top 10 centers and wingers and the fantasy mailbag. So in this segment, once we get down to our top 10 centers and wingers, we're going to use Nate's rankings and projections, and then we'll also throw in some of our rankings and projections. But to start, let's go through the fantasy mailbag. So thanks to everyone that submitted questions. It's great to hear listener feedback, listener questions like this. We have fun with it, and Nate, I know you've got lots of fantasy knowledge to share, so let's get right into it. Could you provide some insight to your draft strategy this season, i.e. round by round? Who are you targeting early, mid, and late rounds? So I guess, we asked you this question last year too, maybe just a general overview of the draft, what you're kind of looking at, and maybe one or two names kind of early, mid, and late round drafts.
Yep. Yeah, so generally early on, I'm literally just going best player available. I build out my my spreadsheet for whatever the draft settings are, the scoring settings for that league, roster settings. I include all that in my spreadsheet, and I build out what I think at least like the first couple of rounds should probably look like for me, who I should be targeting. And I'm just pretty much taking whoever I have up next on my sheet for the first few rounds. I ended up having strong projections on Mikko Rantanen, David Pastrnak, and Timo Meier, so I've ended up with them in a lot of places, a little bit more than others, I would say. So those have been a few guys that it seems like I'm a little bit higher on than most. In the mid rounds, just some guys that I like. Philip Forsberg seems to be slipping in here. Seems like there's almost an overcorrection on some of these Nashville guys, where people look at last year. Definitely really high shooting percentages across the board there. But also definitely like Forsberg really took a step last year, and I think some of that was legit. He was always kind of a really solid point per game player almost when he was healthy. It was just injury concerns with Forsberg. So I like Forsberg in the mid rounds if you can get him there. Kevin Fiala, another one. I think LA's a good spot for him. Nikolai Ehlers, Zach Werenski, and Drew Doughty on the back end for me in the mid rounds. And then when we get into the late rounds, I'm really just focused on upside. I'm going to turn over this portion of my roster unless it's a big hit anyways. I posted today my Cacuffle roster. That's a Keeping Karlsson patron league. And last year, I turned over everybody from the 10th round onwards in that league. So, like, anywhere in the double-digit rounds, I'm pretty much just focused on upside. Like, what's the best-case scenario for this player? So I'm really just trying to find one or two big hits in those late rounds, and then the rest I'm just going to churn through the waiver wire through the season. This year, a few names I've been looking at: Sam Bennett, Cole Sillinger, Seth Jarvis, Bowen Byram, and then Matt Murray, who we talked about, and Alexander Georgiev. Whichever one of those gets into the 10th, 11th round, then I've been taking my first goalie there.
So I just got a couple follow-up questions. So you mentioned Alexander Georgiev. Do you think there's a chance we see Francouz actually take over a larger share of the net in Colorado?
I think there's definitely a chance. I think Bednar there has actually kind of shown the same thing. Like, if somebody gets hot, he commits to them and he rides them a fair bit. He did it with Kemper too last year. So I do think there's a chance that Francouz takes over there. But I do think, like Joe Sakic came out and said, like, we acquired Georgiev to be the starter. So he's going to get every chance to be that for them. And then if he can do it, then he'll be a big hit. And if not, then Francouz will be a big hit. But I don't think early in the season, similar to Samsonov, early in the season, I don't think you're going to be able to hang on to Francouz on your roster, even if you grab him, because I just don't think he's going to get volume. I think Bednar wants to see what he has in Georgiev. I think Sakic wants Bednar to see what he has in Georgiev after making that trade for him. So it's pretty hard to get anybody and keep anybody on your roster if they're only starting like 1/3 of the games.
Fair enough. And then I've heard you mention Zach Werenski or talk about him on Twitter a few different times. So I know you're really big on Werenski. I'm just kind of curious, what about him this year is really appealing to you?
I think Werenski's just been kind of perennially underrated. Like, this is a guy who's really efficient and is a total shot monster at the same time. It's a really unique combination that you see with very few guys. Like Dougie Hamilton was this for a fair bit in Carolina. Obviously had a down year last year, and we'll see if he can rebound in New Jersey. But there's very few players who are actually shooting the amount that Werenski is. I have him projected for over 250 shots in 82 games, obviously. I'm converting at 7.8%, which is really high for a defenseman, but it's actually like, if you look at his career averages, that's about where Werenski usually sits. And when it's all said and done, I have him coming out to 67 points, which is obviously a pretty high projection, but he hasn't been that far off that pace. It's just been more kind of injuries here and there that have kind of slowed him up. So I think if he does get a full season, they've got Johnny Gaudreau in there now. Patrick Laine looks like he's turning his career around there in Columbus. I think things are looking up there. I think they've got 3 premium players there with Gaudreau, Laine, and Werenski, and I think they're going to do really well together this year.
Alrighty. For our listeners that are not aware, please provide an overview of your zero-G draft strategy. Could you tell us what you found based on last year's results? I know you had an episode where you talked about some of the results, and so maybe if you just want to talk about that a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, so when I started Zero G, it was data based on the COVID-shortened season, the 56-game season that we got there, and goalies were just completely all over the map in that season. Like, it made no rhyme or reason. Wherever you drafted goalies, you were just wrong, and it was whoever you picked up, that was the correct thing to do. So that was kind of where Zero G got started. Last year was actually much more predictable for the top-end goalies. It was kind of interesting. I was pretty surprised when I went back and ran the numbers on it. Like a significant portion of the top 12 or so goalies actually finished in the top 12. It's different. I would clarify, it's one thing to finish in the top 12. It's another thing to return value on where you drafted them. And the reason for that is just because goalies, I think, are inherently replaceable in this game that we play. So the thesis of Zero G ends up just really being you want to spend less on goalies in your drafts than others in your league. And just because they're more replaceable. Last year, we had Ville Husso, we had Anton Forsberg just emerge out of nowhere in the back half of the season, and they were league winners. Season before that, it was Jack Campbell, it was Mike Smith, emerging out of nowhere, becoming league winners. I rode both of those guys to championships that year. I had Ville Husso in a couple places last year, brought me home some championships as well. So it's really these kind of guys, like somebody in your league is going to have that player, right? And he's just going to be such a huge advantage because they paid nothing for him and they got him on their team and he provided immense value. And you really can't find that at forward or defense later on in the year, but you can find it at goalie. And that's kind of the thesis there. It really, if you're going Zero G in the draft, it kind of leaves you open to and searching for guys like that throughout the season. And you might ride with some guys for a little bit, like guys who are terrific in the first half of the season might not be guys who are terrific in the last half of the season. And you have to be kind of, flexible and go with the flow there. But it also keeps you from getting take lock on guys like Vasilevsky was terrible during the fantasy hockey playoffs last year. He sunk a lot of really good teams. But if that was a Zero G goalie, a guy you just picked up off the waiver wire, you would have just chucked him after the first bad game and you would have picked up somebody who would have done better for you. So I think it keeps you from that kind of take lock where you're like, man, I can't drop this guy. I spend a first round pick or a second round pick or even like a 6th or 7th round pick. It keeps you from that. And then the other thing it really does for you is in the draft, you end up being able to focus on just filling your roster with the best skaters in your league. And that can be really valuable, especially if you get a few hits that really take off. And getting those guys, all the way up to the 10th round or so where you build in some upside for yourself. You build in guys that are going much later than you think they should be, building up that skater core when skaters are just so much more predictable than goalies overall. That really can give you a huge advantage. The only disadvantage I tell people is that you do have to stay vigilant with it. Like, you have to be watching your goalies. I generally give goalies like 2 bad games and then they're off my roster. So that's generally...
That's not much rope.
No, it's not a lot of rope for sure. But I mean, I'm searching through the San Jose goalies and the Arizona goalies. So you gotta take what you can get when you're going through the bottom of the dumpster bin like that.
No kidding. Well, assuming you're not following 0G, so just humor me for a second here. Where are you taking a guy like Ilya Sorokin? Because he's been going fairly early in draft so far. And then I've got an ADP here of 71. In the 5-hole fantasy hockey mock drafts, he was going in ADP of 71. In Yahoo, he's going at an ADP of 30, making him the 3rd goalie off the board. So that's too rich for me for sure. What's your take on Sorokin for the season?
I don't mind Sorokin. I do think that there's a lot of flux with the Islanders, and it could be really good or it could be really bad. Whenever you have a new coach like that, obviously Lane Lambert, he was with the team, so you expect there to be some carryover from last year. But last year wasn't all that good for the Islanders either, so you have to wonder, are they going to try to change some things? Are the things that they try to change really going to work? Obviously, he's going to have some of his own ideas that he's going to want to implement. So you have to wonder, first of all, about the situation, how much that's going to change and whether that'll be positive or negative. I think really what a coaching change like that does is it just increases the variance for a goalie like that, where it could be better than it was or it could be worse, and it's a little more unsure. Definitely, I can't get behind taking a goalie who... they may even go back to 1A, 1B with Semyon Varlamov this year. I think that's well within the range of outcomes. So you can't draft a goalie, in my mind, up at 30. If that's within his range of outcomes, you got to be getting a true workhorse that there's no competition in that net. At 71, what's that, like the end of the 6th round? I guess to most people that's a fair value. Because of how I approach goalies, the position in general, I just inherently devalue them. So he's probably like a 9th or 10th round pick for me. But he's obviously going to be long gone by then. I value goalies in long, flat tiers, which is probably pretty different for most people. But yeah, I think Sorokin at the end of the 6th round, you're probably not lighting a pick on fire at that point. Like I said, last year, goalies are actually a little more predictable. Maybe that stays true this year. And it's a good goalie, I would say. Like, we have enough body of work with Sorokin. He was a highly touted prospect, all the right signs that you want to see that you think he's a good enough goalie to be drafting at this point. To me, it's really just the team situation that gives me a little bit of pause.
So what about a guy, you're talking about workhorse goaltenders. What's your take on Connor Hellebuck? Because he's slipping in drafts right now, and I mean, you can get him. I think he's ranked somewhere. He's in the top 100, but not by much, right? So right. He's fallen quite a bit. Is that a guy you would take a pick on? I know what your take is, obviously, but if you're not doing 0G, if you're not fading goaltenders.
Yeah, I think Hellebuck is a lot more fairly priced this year for what we should probably expect. It is possible to me, like, I think a lot of what we've seen in his numbers has just been reflected in overall team play, that the team has kind of descended from their heights when they were considered to be one of the better teams in the Western Conference. And so I think that Hellebuck is probably still the same goalie. He's just been kind of downgraded because of the team context a little bit. But you do have to build in the possibility that, goalie shelf life in this league is not very long. The guys who stick around and excel for long periods of time are by far the exception, not the rule. So you do have to also consider that he could just be kind of on the downtrend of his career at this point. So I think he's being appropriately valued for that possibility at this point. And just given the sheer volume that we know he's going to get, they have nobody else behind him really who's going to challenge him for starts. So he's one of those guys, like, especially in a points league where you're just looking for someone who's going to be in the net every night. He's definitely got some value there.
Perfect. All right, what are your thoughts on line stacking as a draft strategy? Do you cap it at 3 players? I think you put an article out recently talking about line stacking. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a viable strategy. Really dependent for me on your roster size and how much flexibility you have within your roster, like in terms of dual eligibility, and if you've got a lot of off nights guys. Like if you want to stack Trevor Zegras and Troy Terry off of Anaheim, those guys play like half off nights this year. So it's going to be a lot easier for them to be in your lineup every single time that they're playing. And so you're not really losing that flexibility that you would typically lose from 2 players playing the same nights all year long. Definitely, I wouldn't recommend stacking guys who only play the same position. Like I wouldn't draft, say, Bergeron and Krejci off of Boston because they both play the same position, so they're both locked in the same nights all the time. Now, that being said, if you have a league where it's like 3 centers, 3 left wing, 3 right wing, and then like 3 utility spots where you can play any position, like then obviously your roster inherently has a lot more flexibility, so you can build in a little more stacking. And stacking in and of itself, I think, is a valid strategy. Basically, what you're doing is you're making a single bet, right? You're saying, I think these guys who we know are going to be playing together, I think that one or both is going to have a really good season, and that's going to rub off on the other guy. So you're kind of making a single bet, and if that bet hits, then you've got kind of double the value off that single bet that you're making. So I think line stacking is a very valid strategy. Capping it at 3 players, definitely in leagues where, if you have like 2 centers, 2 left wing, 2 right wing, no utility spots, then definitely it becomes a lot harder, and you have to think a lot harder about whether you can really fit all these guys in. Maybe if the third player is a defenseman or something like that, it's obviously a different position. It doesn't matter as much. But yeah, definitely wouldn't stack players on the same team that play the exact same position. And then the rest is a little bit dependent on how many off nights you have throughout your roster and the roster size and the flexibility you have that way.
All right. What is your draft strategy in a keeper league? 12 keepers, it's already set, and an 8-round draft. Any feedback on that one?
Yeah, I think this is probably going to be pretty obvious, but the biggest one I'd say is I wouldn't have any goalie keepers unless I really hit big on somebody outside of those 12 keepers. Like, if you had Shesterkin and you had grabbed him at the end of, I forget what year that was when he came over for the first time and he had that really hot start. Like if you had grabbed him then and you wanted to keep him throughout, then obviously you're going to keep somebody like Shesterkin. But I wouldn't be keeping like marginal starters, basically anyone outside the kind of elite workhorse tiers. I would really just be focusing on having the best skater group I possibly could every single year and let the league mates go wild on the goalies and then just kind of pick up the scraps as I usually do. 12 keepers, pretty deep. That's definitely on the deeper side in terms of keepers, but I don't think realistically my philosophy changes a whole lot from a keeper draft to a redraft. Definitely you want to have some kind of mix of forwards and defense throughout that. You don't want to leave yourself totally exposed by keeping like 10 forwards and only 2D if you got to fill 4 D spots. So there is some element of balancing your lineup through those 12 keepers that you have to consider for sure.
All right. How comfortable would you be keeping Nikita Kucherov given his injury history? Victor Hedman is the other option.
Yeah, I think you have to keep Kucherov just because the ceiling is so high, and especially because he plays right wing as well, which I think a lot of people have talked about is kind of the most scarce position. He has I have him projected for 120 point pace this season. Like I think there's 2 other guys that I have anywhere close to that. So really, you kind of have to eat the potential injury history there just because of the upside at that point. There's very few players like this. Victor Hedman, obviously an intriguing other option who doesn't have that injury history, but given that Kucherov played last year, seemed pretty healthy throughout it. I don't tend to factor injury history in to my evaluations too much. We've seen guys like Chris Letang go through like 5 straight years where it seemed he couldn't stay healthy, and then the last 3 years he's missed like 6 total games or something like that. So I think a lot of injury-prone players, as we like to call them, are really just unlucky players, and their luck can change in an instant, and they'll be fine again. We see lots of instances like that. So I tend personally to just kind of fade injury-prone players. And the other thing is, like, even if Kucherov misses like 20 games or something this season, it's not like you don't get to fill his spot for the rest of those games that he plays, right? Mm-hmm. You're gonna find somebody else to take that spot, and the games that he does play, you're getting an absolute elite player at a position that's really hard to replace. So for me, I'm definitely keeping Kucherov in that scenario.
Okay. There seems to be fewer dual eligible players on Yahoo anyway than in years past, especially at the top of the draft. How strongly do you consider roster flexibility when drafting? Do players like Steven Stamkos, JT Miller, Timo Meier, Kevin Fiala, etc. get a bump on your draft boards? Thanks.
Yeah, I would say it kind of depends where I am in the draft a little bit. So in the early rounds, like I said, I'm really just kind of going best player available through the first couple rounds or so. I wouldn't give anybody a bump. If there were 2 guys that I really thought within the settings, like they scored within a few points of each other for my spreadsheet, and there's really not much to separate the 2, then you could use it as a tiebreaker if one of them was dual eligible and the other wasn't. But in the early rounds, I'm not looking to give anyone a bump. In the mid to late rounds, you've got the top of your lineup set a little bit more, and you kind of know what you need or don't need. Then definitely, if I don't have that roster flexibility at the top of my lineup, then I'm absolutely going to be prioritizing dual eligible players. It's definitely a huge boon to your lineup if you're able to move those players in and out. You don't want to be that guy who's stuck with 3 left wing only and 3 right wing only, and they all play on the same nights, and you just can't fit them in ever. But you can't trade them because they're all decent players, and you don't know what to do with yourself. So don't put yourself in that position. Definitely in the mid to late rounds, I'm prioritizing dual eligible guys, and if I can get them in the early rounds, I love to have them there as well.
Okay. Is Rasmus Sandin going to get any ice time this year?
Yeah, so Sandin is another holdout currently. Still hasn't come to camp. The Leafs don't really have money for him right now, so it's really hard to see what they're actually going to do with Sandin. He's a little buried now, even if he does sign. They have Giordano, who came back on a sweetheart contract, and Liljegren is also probably ahead of him now for the second power play unit. So I think even if Sandin does come back, he's not going to be in a top 4 role. I don't think he's going to get to the second power play even at this point. I think he's got a couple people ahead of him for that. So it's really hard to see a scenario, unfortunately, where Sandin is really fantasy relevant and has enough ice time really to be fantasy relevant this year.
Okay. 5th round, points league, 6 points for goals, 4 points for assists. Aiming for Jake Gensel, Jason Robertson, maybe Nikolai Ehlers. If Johnny Gaudreau slips, do you think he's worth the risk to take moving to a new team and line?
Yeah, so in those settings, just going off my projections, I would have it Gensel, then Robertson, then Gaudreau, then Ehlers. With the Robertson contract dragging out now into camp, I would probably move Gaudreau ahead. I think I'd still take Robertson ahead of Ehlers, but it's getting tight now. Every day that goes by, Robertson slips probably a couple more places in my ranks. So, that's the way I would do it. Definitely Gensel first, then probably Gaudreau at this point, and then Robertson, and then Ehlers.
All right. Dougie Hamilton is someone that's being ranked differently among different projections. His power play one time is a question mark on his production and value as a fantasy defenseman. What are your thoughts? Is he at a fair ADP?
Yeah, so I looked him up on Yahoo. On Yahoo right now, he's 103.7 ADP. That's a smash for me at that ADP, just because Yeah, the shot volume here is tremendous. Even last year when things weren't going his way, the shots were still there. The upside is through the roof with Hamilton. We've seen it before. Like, he was somebody who was drafted in the 3rd round in a lot of places last year. This is, to me, the kind of player that you want to bet on. The floor is really safe with the shots and the peripherals and even the 5v5 ability. So even if he doesn't get top power play the entire season, like, he's going to produce enough that it's not like a wasted pick in my mind. But really, I think at 100 or even outside the top 100 at this point, the upside is really not being valued in, where he kind of puts it all together his second year in New Jersey. If New Jersey as a team takes a step, they made some additions this year as well. If they as a team take a step and Hamilton figures things out, like, they're paying the guy $9 million a year or whatever it is, like, they're going to play him as long as he's healthy and everything. So I think that upside is really not being valued in his valued into his current ADP. And definitely I think he has that 60+ point upside still in him. So at that ADP, I think he's an absolute smash.
I'd agree. Nate is bullish on Kevin Fiala. Does playing in LA give him a boost next year? Usually players going to new teams are a risk to repeat same production rates. Can you talk about the projection with LA versus Mini?
Yeah, I'm bullish on Fiala for a couple reasons. One is because LA is a team that kind of generates shots and scoring chances the same way that Fiala already has throughout his career. Just seems like a team system that they've got going there. A lot of guys took a step last year and produced at great levels. And then now he's going to play with Anze Kopitar. I don't really see a scenario in which he's not on the top line and top power play there. So I think Kopitar is probably the best line mate he's ever had, and vice versa, to be honest. Now he's going to get that power play all the time. He's going to get that line one deployment all the time. The adjustment period, sure, that's a legitimate worry. But I do think the upside here is really, really high because Fiala, even in Minnesota, even on like a line with Freddie Gaudreau, and once Matt Boldy came to town, then he finally had somebody to play with and he really took off. I think you could see something similar with Kopitar. I think those two will definitely work well together. Might take a 15, 20 games for them to get on track, but I do think that they're both that level of player that they should really help each other out and really elevate each other.
Okay, so we've got a bit of a follow-up question here, and is Anze Kopitar, and you probably answered already, but is Anze Kopitar capable of producing 75-plus points now playing with Fiala despite his age?
Yeah, I think absolutely he is. You look at who Kopitar's line mates have been. He was carrying around the corpse of Dustin Brown for a while, and Adrian Kempe had a career year last year. Didn't have any assists, but scored a whole bunch of goals on Kopitar's line. He turned Alex Iafallo into a fantasy asset for a while. Like I think Kopitar himself is a terrific player still, and he's just been kind of held down by not having this kind of elite level line mate. And I do think Fiala is an elite level kind of point per game plus player. And so I do think I have Kopitar actually projected exactly for a point per game this year. So I do think he's capable of producing 75 plus. I don't think he really has a ton of upside to like go all the way back up to like 90 plus like he was in his prime anymore. I don't think that's really in the cards. So I am probably projecting him kind of towards the top end of his range of outcomes. But I do think he definitely can do 75 plus.
Okay, and now we've got a couple. The notes ninja snuck up on me here, Nate. So we got a couple questions. I didn't know they're in here. How much better is Jack Campbell than Matt Murray? Thanks. I'll hang up and listen. Great show. Would listen again.
I think it's debatable. I don't know. With Jack Campbell, he got injured. He was definitely playing through portions of last year. But after the injury was supposedly all taken care of and he was fine again, he still didn't put it together. So I do have concerns about that. I think obviously he's got a big opportunity at Edmonton. He should get a lot of wins. I do question if he's going to have the kind of save percentage that you're going to look for where he's being drafted. I think maybe cooler heads should prevail there, and him and Murray should be drafted not as far apart as they are being currently. But I do have Campbell ranked ahead of Murray, so I'm not gonna sit here and say that I think that Murray is a better goalie.
Because Murray's trash.
Very well could be.
Great answer. Great answer.
And then there's a follow-up question here. Why is McDavid so much better than Matthews? First-time caller, long-time listener. Big fan of the show. Yeah, I can imagine who wrote this one.
Yeah, I think in terms of fantasy, at least, McDavid is the only guy you can say, like, he might score 150 points this year. Like, nobody else has that kind of upside. Really, I think there is a conversation between Matthews and McDavid in some leagues, just depending on the amount of weight that you give goals. Matthews, I have projected for 65 goals this year, which is just insane. I've never projected anyone for anything that high. So if he does get up to there, then it's probably a conversation in some leagues, just depending on the weights and stuff that you have, especially in points leagues. But personally, I'm probably taking McDavid 101 in a lot of places just because of that potential upside that nobody else has.
All right. So that kind of does it for some of the draft questions we had, or draft-related questions. And then there's just a couple general ones here. So would you consider keeping Moritz Seider over Aaron Ekblad?
This, for me, would depend on the format, probably. In Bangers Cats, maybe. In most point setups, unless there's a really strong Bangers weight, I don't think I would. Moritz Seider was kind of a bit of a surprise last year. Like, he was considered to be really good, considered to be a top-line defenseman in the making. I don't think a lot of hockey prospecting people thought that Moritz Seider was going to be a consistent, 55, 60-plus point player in the league. And so, to my mind, Ekblad has the offensive edge over Seider, both in situation and probably in offensive talent. If you're asking me which defenseman would I rather, start a NHL team with, then it'd be a much closer conversation. But for my fantasy team, I'm probably taking Ekblad unless it's Banger Cats, and then it's probably neck and neck.
Okay. Who do you like more for the upcoming season, assuming he plays Jason Robertson or Brady Tkachuk?
Yeah, again, this is probably going to depend on the format a little bit. If you're in Bangers Cats and you have Pims included, then it'd be probably Tkachuk in a landslide. If it's more of a point setup, then I think Robertson has legitimate 100-point upside. I don't know if he ever hits that, but it's within his range of outcomes if he takes one more step. It feels like Robertson's been around a while, but really he's played like a season and a half. He kind of came in during the COVID-shortened year and then played all of last year, obviously. So I think it's possible that we haven't even seen the ceiling for Robertson yet. So I think there is a scenario in which Robertson is a 100-point player, and I don't think that scenario exists for Tkachuk. So yeah, for me, if it's Bangers Cats, then definitely Tkachuk, like the shots, the hits, the Pims, it's all there. But in most point setups, I'm probably going to be taking Robertson.
Music to Bruce's ears.
Yep.
Just a couple trade questions here. So Evander Kane for Jonathan Huberdeau, that trade's been completed. Head-to-head, keep 5 league. Goals are worth 6 points, assists 4, power play points 2, hits half a point, blocks half a point, and shots on goal 0.9 points. What are your thoughts on that trade?
I'm taking Huberdeau there, but it's closer than most would probably think.
I said Kane, actually, for me.
Yeah. Yeah,
just being that he's playing next to McDavid.
Oh, I thought it was going to be just because you're an Edmonton fan, but
well, that's probably some of my bias, right? But I think he legitimately has 50-goal upside this year, playing a full season with McDavid. I think it could happen.
I don't know if I'd get to 50. I'd definitely say 40. He'd have to go on a pretty big bender, either show us something he's really never shown us before, even with Edmonton last year, in terms of shot volume and conversion. That would be the big thing for me. Like, I have him projected right now for a 12% shooting percentage. For him to get into a 50 range, like he'd have to convert at like 19%. And shoot a little bit more. So that would be pretty tough for me to see. I could see 40 definitely, even if he gets a little bit hot throughout the year. From where I have him to getting to 40 is not a big leap.
Yeah.
And definitely like Huberdeau in a new place, there's definitely lots of worry there. you just don't know, right? There's a lot of uncertainty in a new place like that. But Huberdeau does hit a little bit, so it's not like he takes a massive back seat in the hits, not as much as most would. So overall, I am gonna stick with Huberdeau there, but it's definitely a conversation. I don't think this trade is outrageous by any means.
Okay. Potential trade: Mo Seider, Evgeny Kuznetsov, and a third-round pick in exchange for Dylan Larkin, Chris Letang, and a second-round pick.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Kind of because you have Kuznetsov and Letang on opposite sides of the deal. They're both kind of on the verge of aging out in terms of fantasy usefulness, you would think. I lean the Larkin Letang side, but overall I would say it seems pretty fair. I think it's a reasonable trade, and if you think you're getting the better of it, that would probably just be based on your evaluation of these players. Based on mine, I guess I would take the Larkin Letang side, but it's definitely very close.
All right. Well, that does it for the fantasy mailbag segment. Thanks for everyone that submitted questions, and Nate, thanks for getting through all those with us.
No problem.
I noticed that Tyler took off already, so he knows what time it is. As a member of the Hockey Podcast Network, the Fantasy Hockey X Podcast is a proud partner of DraftKings. The NFL action is in full swing here at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. We're talking touchdowns, big plays, and even bigger wins. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. Did you hear that, Tyler? If that's not enough, everyone can boost their winnings, and DraftKings stepped up same-game parlays. Right now, for every leg you add, you can boost your winnings up to 100% with payouts bigger than ever. Why bet on football anywhere else? To make things even sweeter, you can throw down on stepped-up same-game parlays once per game day all season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN to get $200 in free bets if your team wins when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's promo code THPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. If you do need crisis counseling or referral services, all the information can be found in our show notes. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, guys, too, was Raycon. I've been listening to lots of fantasy hockey content lately, and of course, Raycon wireless earbuds have been a big reason as to why that listening experience is so great. They look, feel, and sound better than ever with optimized gel tips. They have the perfect in-ear fit. They are so comfortable. They will not budge. Promise. Raycon gives you 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery life. They're priced just right. You get quality audio at half the price of other premium brands. And it's no wonder everyday earbuds have over 50,000 five-star reviews. Customizable sound profiles, earbud tap functions, noise isolation, and awareness mode. Go to buyraycon.com today and use promo code THPN15 to get 15% off your Raycon order. That's promo code THPN15 at buyraycon.com to score 15% off. And with that, guys, let's move on to our top 10 centers. Nate, as we talked about this, we're just going to use your rankings and your projections, and then I just included ours as well. And so kind of what we've done, Mike over at Left Wing Lock has provided us with top 200 rankings that we can just use throughout the season. They're powered by his projections, his numbers. So we'll just, for reference, we'll kind of note what we have there for our rankings to be found on our website and the projections that we went through as part of our fantasy previews. So obviously, probably not hard to guess, but the number one center this year, Connor McDavid. Yahoo ADP of 1.1. You've got him at 47 goals and 133 points. We had him projected for 48 and 132, so virtually the same. But our rankings, and I don't think anyone here necessarily agrees with this, but we had him at number 3 in our top 200 ranks. And that was kind of based on more of a category league setup. But anyway, so do you think he hits 50? Is that possible he hits 50 goals this year? It's not a stretch from what you've projected there.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I have him converting 15.5% shooting percentage. Definitely, I think you'd only have to get up to 16% to hit 50 goals at that point. So definitely well within the range of outcomes. Like I said, McDavid, one of the only guys in history even that you can say has 150 plus point upside. So McDavid 101, I think you just set it and forget it.
Good stuff. The next one here, Leon Draisaitl, that might rub some people the wrong way, a.k.a. John over there. And actually, in our rankings that we've gotten from Left Wing Lock, he's ranked number 1. And I think John
Trash.
almost flipped a garbage. Yeah. So anyway, but again, just some of the category coverage made sense, and it depends on league settings and stuff like that. But you've got him at 56 goals, 122 points. Our projection for him was 53 goals, 116 points. So you were actually more bullish on him than we were even, which is a shock to me. What do you think for Leon this year? Could he hit 60?
It's going to be tough for Draisaitl because he's not quite the same level of volume shooter that some of these other guys who get close to 60 are. Like when Ovechkin hit 60, he was an extreme volume shooter. When Matthews did it last year, extreme volume shooter. It's really hard to get to 60 if you're not that level of volume shooter. Like I have Draisaitl almost converting at 20%. And it's just so hard to get beyond that level. I know he's done it in the past, but it's so hard to sustain. Like, I think just the betting money is against anyone converting at over 20% for a whole season, even someone of Draisaitl's caliber. So it's definitely possible. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's definitely not something I'd be close to betting on.
Okay, fair enough. You've got Nathan McKinnon at 3. So I got to be honest, Nate. I figured we see Austin Matthews here, but are you trying to avoid the Leafs bias here? What's going on? What's your take on Nathan McKinnon? You got him for 41 goals and 117 points.
Yeah, honestly, the way that I do my projections, I don't see the final numbers until I've input all the variables that I put in. I kind of like it that way. It kind of helps me remove my own biases that I might think and go back and adjust later, I guess, if I really wanted to. But I try to steer clear of that and just make sure that I'm putting in the inputs that I think are correct. So yeah, McKinnon, extreme volume shooter, like 380 shots is what I have him projected for, which is just insane. Really, he kind of paces around this every year. He just always seems to pick up an injury somewhere that just robs him of like 10 games, and he never kind of puts it all together and has that one immense, I don't know if you'd call it a breakout. He's already definitely broken out, but that like Hart Trophy caliber year. So I think as long as he stays healthy, that's within the range of outcomes for McKinnon. You see just how incredibly efficient Colorado was last year. I don't really think that's going to change this year. The players that they lost, like I guess Kadri's a little bit of a downgrade, but Nichushkin, like who's to say Nichushkin doesn't take another step this year and kind of fill that void on the top power play. So overall, I think McKinnon at 117 points is fine. I'm obviously projecting them. Any of these top end players, you're kind of already projecting them at the top end of their possible range of outcomes just by nature of they're already getting all the ice time. They're already getting top power play deployment. Like there's not really much higher for them to go, really. But definitely, I think this is possible, or I wouldn't have put it out to the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's honestly, it's just where the numbers came out on McKinnon. And I think he does actually kind of under the radar produce at this level. It's just the injuries tend to rob him of the full totals year after year.
Yeah, he's been a model of consistency the last 3 years. I think every year he's been on pace for 111 points and 39 goals. So our projection was 39 goals and 108 points. He's very consistent. He just, like you said, health is always the issue there. Austin Matthews, you've got here at number 4. Our left-wing lock ranks had him at number 2. Our projection was 65 goals and 110 points. Yours was 65 goals and 116 points, so very close there as well. 3-year average is 106 points and 62 goals. So anything else there we should touch on with Austin Matthews?
Yeah, the one thing with Matthews that's a little different from the other two is that he doesn't get the same extreme amount of power play points, which is a little bit surprising because Toronto's power play was really good last year. And Matthews just doesn't quite get that same share. A little bit of that is, they have Nylander there who's a really good shooter, so they don't just like force feed Matthews shots all the time the way, they did with Ovechkin in Washington for all those years and stuff. It's just a little bit of a function of the way they run the power play, I guess. So, I mean, you could say, I guess, that there's a potential that one year they do that and his power play points go up and he gets some more points that way. But overall, I think, yeah, obviously projecting a guy for 65 goals, you don't expect much beyond that to be possible.
Yeah.
But I think this is kind of in line with what he did last year, and I don't have a good reason to bump him down a whole lot from what he did last year. So I'm going to leave him up there until he shows me something different.
All right, number 5, Alexander Barkov. Yahoo ADP at 13.6. You've got him projected for 44 goals and 104 points. Our rankings have him at number 7, 42 goals and 102 points. I see him taking a bit of a step back. Like, I don't think Florida necessarily got better, right? I think he's gonna miss Huberdeau there on the power play. He's gonna miss even on the right side, like Duclair not being there, and just some of the things that they've moved around. It's hard to say what's gonna happen with him, but and injuries too can be a concern with Barkov. So it was still a good outlook for that player from you. So anything else you want to mention about Barkov?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I was kind of surprised myself that it came out to be this high. I did actually, like, believe it or not, I did tick him down with Huberdeau leaving. Like, I took he didn't play a lot with Huberdeau at 5-on-5 last year. Huberdeau was more on the second line, but definitely on the power play they were together and doing really well together. So I did actually give the power play a bit of a nerf with Huberdeau leaving town. But it wasn't all that much because of the arrival of Tkachuk, who's a terrific player in his own right. So it was mitigated, I guess, a little bit that way, and that's probably why Barkov comes out just above 100 points in my projections for this year.
Okay. And I should clarify, too, our top 200 rank, it's the numbers I'm spitting out here are not position specific. So
right,
just for this next one, because you've got Sidney Crosby at number 6 here. His ADP is 18.7, 36 goals and 95 points is your projection. We've got Crosby at number 12 in the top 200 overall rankings. And basically the same projection, 35 goals, 95 points. Anything on Crosby we should know about?
Yeah, I think Crosby's actually been pretty consistent over the last number of years. He's kind of settled into an old man level of play, if you want to call it that. 95-point pace is pretty solid for an old man like that. But yeah, I don't have a reason similar to Matthews, but they kind of returned the whole cast in Pittsburgh. Everything is staying the same, so it's pretty hard to project him for anything different than what he's done the last 3 years there.
And has Crosby got 2 years left on his contract?
That sounds right, but I'd have to look at it to be sure.
Okay. I mean, we just talked about it on our previous episode. It feels a little bit like Last Dance territory with these guys, right?
Right. Yep.
Number 7 here, Jack Hughes. So everyone's big on Jack Hughes, right? Everyone has him going for 100 points this year. You've got him at 39 goals and 90 points. We had him at 38 and 86. A lot of career highs for him last year. Is he going to duplicate a lot of that, do you think?
Yeah. So obviously with this projection up at 90 points, I'm kind of believing the injury-shortened season that he put together last year. 94-point pace last year. So I have him just a little bit down from that. I think if Hamilton does take a step, that helps Hughes, especially if they figure it out on the power play together. Hughes has always been a volume shooter, like you'll hear me say a lot. But last year was kind of the first year he actually started to convert on those chances. And I think part of that was probably due to him just being a really small dude when he came into the league as a teenager. And now that he's starting to grow up a little bit and turn into a little bit more of a man, I think some of these goals are going in for him. So I don't have him taking a step back really in shooting percentage, which keeps the goals up there. And I do think the supporting cast will continue to improve around him. They added Andre Palat, which is just another weapon. He might not play with Hughes specifically, but if there's injuries or whatever, it just kind of gives a little bit more safety in that top 6. So I do think Hughes, I don't think Hughes probably has 100-point potential like some are saying, but I do think 90 points is well within his range.
All right. JT Miller at number 8. His ADP is 21.9. You've got him projected for 30 goals and 88 points. We've got him at 30 goals and 92. He's number 10 in our rankings in the top 200. Anything we need to know about JT Miller?
Miller kind of took another step last year. It was kind of interesting, kind of a late career breakout, if you want to call it that. I don't think that he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna crack 90. So I do think I'm kind of right at the top end of his projection. I have him for 21 minutes average time on ice. I have him shooting 15%. So pretty good conversion percentage there. And again, not a guy who shoots a lot. He shoots a fair bit, but not like an extreme amount. Not an upper echelon shot volume kind of guy. So it's hard for a guy like that to really escalate beyond like a point per game into the 90 plus, 95, 100 point territory. So I don't think he's really going to get there, but I do think he's probably pretty safe if you've got him for a point per game or slightly above.
All right, number 9, Sebastian Aho, ADP of 30.1. His year points projection for him is 39 goals and 88 points. Our top 200 rank has him at number 25, actually, so big difference there with Left Wing Lock's numbers. We've got him projected for 40 goals and 85 points. What do you expect to see out of Aho this year?
Yeah, I was pretty hyped up about Pacioretty coming to town. I thought that would be a good fit with Aho and Teravainen on a top line there. So that definitely hurts Pacioretty's injury. Definitely hurts Aho a little bit here. But obviously I'm still pretty in on Aho in general. I do think like the guy's only 25 years old. Like he's definitely gonna do all the things that have made us love him so far. I don't think unless Rod Brindamore goes away that he's got a lot of potential for more, just because Brindamore kind of holds down everybody's ice time. He likes to spread it around a bit in the top 9, I guess you would say, group of forwards. But I think Aho is one of the safest kind of point per game players out there, and he can get you a little more if he has a good efficiency year. So that's what I have him projected for this year.
All right, then rounding out the top 10 for centers, we've got Evgeny Malkin. His ADP is 61.9, so that feels like some pretty good value in terms of his draft position. That's also music to John's ears, who's half asleep right now, but he's still with us.
No, my eyes hurt.
Okay. You've got 32 goals and 86 points as his projection. We've got him at 36 goals and 88 points, so not a huge discrepancy there, but number 20 in terms of the top 200 rankings. It seems like we mentioned this in previous episodes, like 2020, 2021 kind of looks like it was maybe an outlier. He produced at a rate of 0.85 points per game, and that was a career low for him. So do we expect him, it looks like you expect him to be over a point per game here anyway.
Yeah, I do think he's going to be up back over a point per game. I think he's even older than Crosby, a year older, I believe. So he's one more step along that age-related decline curve that some like to talk about. But yeah, I can't find it in the numbers really, especially because I do kind of throw out that 2020, 2021 season. There's a lot of, you can go read about, but there are a lot of kind of external factors that seem to weigh on Malkin that year and really hold things down. And then last year when he was healthy, he was pretty good. So I do think that, I have him, at 86 points last year, 84-point pace, pretty much in line with what he did last year until I see another step back from him in terms of kind of the advanced stats or the rate stats. I'm going to hold him up here.
Okay. And then the question and your response to Nikita Kucherov makes sense now looking at our top 10 wingers. So moving in that direction, you've got Nikita Kucherov as your number 1 overall winger. His ADP is 9.3. You've got him projected for 42 goals and 120 points. We've got him projected for 42 goals as well, but 110 points. He's number 15 in our top 200 rankings. So I guess explain to me a little bit, like, what is it? Is it team situation? Is it just what are you so big about on Nikita Kucherov for the season?
Yeah, I think a little bit of it is they're going to have to rely on Kucherov even more than they have in the past. Palata's gone now. They've kind of put themselves in this situation. They paid a lot of guys. They paid Cirelli, they paid Chernak, and they paid Sergachev this year. So they've kind of put themselves in this position where they pretty much just have to lean on their top end guys, and which is fine when you've got top end guys like Kucherov. Then obviously you can afford to do that. But I kind of feel like just with where they're at as a team, they're going to run Kucherov out there a whole lot, possibly even more than they have in the past, just because the depth isn't quite the same. Don't get me wrong, Tampa Bay, still a great team, still got lots of depth, but maybe not the amount that they've had in the past. It's kind of interesting the way that he's been deployed the last few years. So last year he was right up around 20 minutes. The year prior, he missed the whole regular season. The year before that, he was down below 19 minutes. But the 2 years before that, if you go back even further, he was right back in this range, 19 minutes, 49 seconds, 19 minutes, 57 seconds. So I do think that probably skews his, that 1 year where he got like over a minute less ice time per game, probably kind of skewed his 3-year projection or whatever you want to call it. So I do think there's a little bit of noise in those numbers. And so that's a little bit of why I would have him up at this really high level of 120 points.
Okay. Number 2, Mitch Marner. His ADP is 18.1. You've got him projected for 39 goals and 111 points. We have him at 33 goals, 100 points. His top 200 rank is 30th overall. What is your take on Mitch Marner for this year?
Yeah, Marner's an interesting one. He's sneakily kind of added shooting, especially in the past year, to the point where now I feel like he's a lock for around 35 goals, give or take, probably plus or minus 5 or something like that. And then, like everyone who's seen Mitch Marner play knows about the setup ability there. And in a season where I'm projecting Matthews for 65 goals, it's pretty easy to see why I might have Mitch Marner up for 72 assists. So that's a little bit of that. Also, Marner has kind of become a pretty efficient shooter as well. I have him down for 15.6% shooting percentage, which is obviously on the high side of things. So I think he's really taken a step as a shooter, and that's probably some people will probably discount him there, where I would have him a little bit higher just on the shooting ability now.
Okay. Mikko Rantanen at number 3. His ADP is 8. You've got him projected for 42 goals and 109 points. We've got him at 42 goals and 100 points. Number 5 in the top 200 rankings. His IPP was down below 60 for the first time in 4 or 5 seasons. So just something to note there. But what's your take on Rantanen? I mean, some things moving around in the top 6 in Colorado right now.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting to see. So this projection was based on a more traditional, I guess, top line, Landeskog, McKinnon, Rantanen. Obviously, if Rantanen gets moved to the second line and he's playing with secondary players all season long, you would have to give him, you would have to have a hit to these numbers. So I guess adjust accordingly based on your perception of how likely that is. But yeah, I do think Rantanen was actually pretty unlucky last year, which is kind of funny to say in a season where he scored 92 points in 75 games. But I do think he actually probably has some room to rebound from where he was last year, which actually, now that I think about it, probably feeds back into my McKinnon projection being as high as it was as well. If Rantanen's scoring a little more, then McKinnon's probably scoring a little bit more. So those two go hand in hand for sure. So yeah, I think Rantanen was actually overall a bit unlucky last year. And so for me, this is kind of just a regression to the mean where I have him coming back up to where I think he probably should even out to.
All right, the next guy here, this one's for you, Bruce. Kirill Kaprizov, ADP of 7. You've got him projected for 47 goals and 102 points. We have him at 47 goals as well and 102 points. Our top 200 rankings have him at number 13. Some interesting stuff here. So his 3.6 shots on goal per game last season was a significant boost from the year prior, where he's at 2.9 shots on goal. And 16.6 shooting percentage his first 2 years in the NHL. Is that going to continue again this year?
Yeah, I do have him. I have him literally 16.6% shooting percentage, which is kind of funny. It's not how I look at it. I actually, when I do projections, I break it up even strength, power play, and shorthanded time on ice. And I do individual shooting percentages across those 3 categories. So it's not like I looked at the overall number and just came back to it, but that's just kind of how it worked out. But I do think Kaprizov took another step last year. It seems like he's a veteran player. He's a little bit older player, but it was his second year in the league, right? So he took another step and elevated his game to an elite level. So I do think like the shots on goal, I think that was pretty much just him taking a second year leap that you see out of a lot of players. So I am kind of assuming that that'll continue. There's not a lot that's changed for him in terms of line mates or anything that you'll see for this year. So I don't really have a good reason to knock him back from what he did last year. I do think, once you get into this 16.6% shooting percentage and these higher IPP numbers that he hits, it's hard to really project him to take another step beyond that. But obviously at 102 points, you're not going to be complaining if you've got Kaprizov and he hits my projection.
Yeah, the other number to watch there is his team's even strength shooting percentage, his Tevish Bruce at just about 12%. So that could regress back to the mean as well, right? Number 5, Artemi Panarin. His ADP is 23.7. Points projection for him is 27 goals and 99 points. We've got him at 30 goals and 100 points. Number 35 in our top 200 rankings. Anything there to say about Panarin? Obviously, Trocheck's a nice addition there at center. I think, in my mind, that's an upgrade over Strome. And then you're hoping for, I guess, another step forward from Lafreniere.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who ends up with that line. It seems like the Rangers have kind of played around with that line a little bit. It seems like Trocheck is probably a fixture. They paid him to be a fixture on that second line, so makes a lot of sense. I do think, like, in terms of overall talent, that Trocheck is an upgrade, but I do think that Strome and Panarin actually had a lot of good chemistry together. So, you could wonder about how long it'll take Trocheck and Panarin to kind of build that chemistry together. I personally am not high on Lafreniere. Just looking at his numbers, his shots per 60 really is what gets me. Like, for him to get into a place where he's remotely fantasy relevant, he would have to take one of the biggest season-to-season leaps we've ever seen in terms of the underlying stats. So I just don't think that's super likely. He's had stretches where he's been in the top 6, and he's never taken advantage of them for any significant period of time. So after 2 years of data where basically from year to year nothing changed in the underlying stats for me, I'm pretty out on Lafreniere for this year. I'll wait to see him prove me wrong at this point. And yeah, like I said, it would be quite the leap for him to get to a point where he's really fantasy relevant and you're going to be holding him on your roster all season long. So not someone I'm super into. So I do think it's going to matter if they have Vitaly Kravtsov there now. If somebody else can take another step and be that right winger and really elevate that line a little bit more by not being dead weight more than anything else that they've had on that line, that'll be interesting to see. So that's what I'm hoping for Panarin. If he gets that, then it's even possible that he beats this projection. But until I see that, this is where I'll have him.
I'm with you 1,000% on Lafreniere. I'm just out. I'm not interested. Number 6, Brad Marchand, left wing, eligible. His ADP is 117 right now in Yahoo. I'm not sure if that's accurately reflecting what we're seeing in some leagues, but that seems like crazy value for a player that could return top 5 value at the position and maybe overall potentially, right? Especially in certain formats. Mm-hmm. You've got him projected for 36 goals, 99 points. We've got him for 27 and 68. That was just assuming. I can't remember how many games we had him projected for, but obviously a lower number. And now it sounds like he'll be back sometime around American Thanksgiving. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so for my numbers here, obviously that's an 82-game pace. I've had some debates with people about what's the quote-unquote right way to do projections, whether you should include games played projections. For myself, what I've decided is I'm just going to do 82-game projections, and then people can build their own assumptions about how long they think people are going to be out, because I know as soon as I project Marchand to be out for 1 month and he's out for 2, then people are going to be mad at me saying like, oh, I shouldn't have taken him where I took him. So Anyway, like just for some context, in my Cacupful draft, which is a 14-team draft, he went at the 5'11". I do think he's probably a pretty good value there, assuming he comes back within the first 1 to 2 months of the season. Because again, like it's not like you can't play anybody else in that slot until he comes back. If you're confident in yourself and your ability to find somebody else to fill that spot until he does come back, then yeah, you're getting probably second round value out of a player in the 5th or 6th round, and that's definitely worth it. And yeah, with the Yahoo ADP where it's at, like that's much later even, so definitely be into him if he's going somewhere in like the 9th or something like that.
Yep, agreed. Okay, Steven Stamkos at number 7. He's being taken right now right around 20. Your points projection for him is 40 goals and 98 points. We have him at 40 goals and 97 points. He's number 6 in our top 200 rankings. I think everybody was kind of relieved to see him do it for a full season last year. 106 points, 42 goals in 81 games played. Does he have that type of season or close to it? Like, are you fading injuries on Stamkos now?
Yeah, now that he's given us kind of a full season of health and obviously produced extremely well, I am kind of all back in, and I'm not going to build any injury supposition into my projection of Stamkos. So yeah, I do have him coming back a little bit from last season's totals, just based on some percentages that I thought were a little bit unsustainable, but definitely 98-point projection, definitely going to be super valuable. Really strong dual eligibility in a lot of places, center left wing, which is also really nice to see. So I really like Stamkos as one of the better second rounders out there.
Perfect. Number 8, David Pastrnak. We have him at number 8 as well. ADP at 24.9. You've got him projected for 42 goals and 97 points. We've got him at 50 goals and 95 points. Obviously, you're not concerned about some of the injuries the Bruins are dealing with, and really, as Tyler would say, you're not going to worry too much about injuries in October, November. If that guy's healthy in February, March, and April, that's really what matters.
Yeah, I think kind of lost in everything that was Pasternak's season last year. He had just terrible personal issues to work through. He did kind of have a big interview at the end of the year and said, yeah, for sure it affected how I was playing. But through all that, he actually had some terrific advanced stats, and it was more the conversion that was a problem for him, where it hadn't been in the past. So I do think that Pastrnak even has upward mobility beyond this projection. This projection is obviously based on getting all of that top power play time, but not so much the exposure to Bergeron and Marchand that he got in the past. So I am kind of almost regressing him a little bit in a way from his absolute ceiling. And he is one of these guys who shoots an absolute ton. And even at 97 points, I only have him down for an average time on ice of 18 and a half minutes per night. So if for whatever reason he ends up being a 20-minute per night player, then you're really looking at an extra boost that could see him well beyond 100. So Pastrnak is definitely someone I'm into. Plays right wing, which again, positional scarcity. There's a lot to like about Pastrnak in my mind, and I'm definitely interested in him. Probably towards the end of the first round, early second round is where he's going in a lot of places. So
that was my follow-up question. Yeah, where are you going for Pastrnak? Okay. Number 9, Jonathan Huberdeau. His ADP is 12 right now. You've got him projected for 29 goals and 95 points. I was kind of happy to see this because I know some people are saying, no, he's not going to take a big step back. But in my mind, he's taking a step back from what we saw last year. So I've got him at 30 goals and 94 points. He's number 17 in our top 200 ranks.
Yeah, I think it's definitely hard. Like, there's no way around it. It's definitely hard to project somebody going to a brand new situation, especially on a team that had as much turnover as Calgary did, where not a lot is going to be constant. At least the coach is constant, I guess, so you can bank on similar systems and things like that. Obviously, they signed him. He's going to be a linchpin for that team, one of their premier players. They're going to play him a lot. So that definitely helps. But he definitely doesn't have anyone the caliber of Barkov on that team, even if it is just power play exposure that he had to Barkov. That's definitely worth something. And there's definitely no extreme finisher on Calgary. I do think he probably gives Tyler Toffoli a boost if it is Toffoli who gets on that top line. But overall, I think it's got to be a downgrade for Huberdeau. It's hard to see him just capturing kind of the magic that was in Florida last year in a brand new situation with different line mates, and obviously a little bit of a downgrade in power play situation.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be thinking about his exotic cars and his hot weather while he's in Calgary in January. And then last but not least, number 10, Johnny Gaudreau, ADP at 20. Points projection, you've got 36 goals, 93 points. We've got 36 goals and 88 points. He's number 99 in our top 200 ranks from Left Wing Lock. I think he'll be good in Columbus. I think next to Patrick Laine should be good. Tyler, I know you're a big fan of Laine. But Nate, what's your take on Gaudreau for this year?
Yeah, I think Gaudreau obviously going to be motivated to prove that the reasons he wanted out of town were legit, and he can produce somewhere else, and it's not just a Calgary thing. I think he's going to have that, I don't know if it's a chip on his shoulder, but that motivation to prove that he can do it somewhere else too. So I don't really think that we'll have like a big regression season like we've seen in the past from Gaudreau in terms of his play level. Definitely having a sniper like Laine to work with both 5v5 and on the power play is really nice. And like I said before, I'm huge on Werenski. I think Werenski is an elite level talent at his position as well. So having kind of that triumvirate of top end players at their respective positions can really buoy all three of those guys. They'll kind of lift each other up. Definitely there's some downside risk going to a new system, a new place. You know, if Laine gets injured, if Werenski gets injured again, as he's been prone to do in the past, then definitely there's some downside risk, because those are kind of the other two elite players there that you would expect to help him out. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm bullish on Gaudreau, but I do expect him to be a 90-point player there. Alrighty.
Well, that does it, guys. I mean, Tyler, Bruce, John, do you guys have any other questions for Nate before we... He's been very generous this time already, but any other questions, guys?
Nope. I think I already asked my questions.
You did, actually, yeah.
Listener questions.
Listener questions, yeah. A friend of yours. Okay. Nate, just for our listeners, where can they find you on Twitter, the Discord, all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, best place to look for anything Apples and Ginos is probably on Twitter. I'm at Apples Ginos there. Yeah, I've got a link tree in the bio where you can find the podcast, you can find the Discord, you can find everything you want to. Discord's thriving. There's lots of conversation in there every day. I'm trying to keep up with all the messages flying around in there. It's getting pretty intense this close to the start of the season, but yeah, definitely a good time in there, so come check that out. And yeah, you can check me out on Yahoo as well. If you're reading any of the articles that Yahoo is putting up on the main site, then I've written a few of those this year, and you'll definitely see more throughout the year.
Perfect. One last thing before we go, guys. Hacks Holiday, season-long contest for running, so thank you to Lucky Bastard, thank you to Left Wing Lock. We're going to send one listener and a guest on a Hacks Holiday to Las Vegas next February. It's going to be Vegas and the Tampa Bay Lightning. February, when's that game, Bruce? February 18th? I think it's Saturday, February 18th. So 2 tickets to that game, 2 round-trip tickets to Las Vegas, 3 nights accommodations, and a 1-year free subscription to the Left Wing Lock iPhone app. So make sure you go to fantasyhockeyhacks.com/hacksholiday to enter. Follow the directions to enter the contest. Some information you'll need. Hack the code this week. The number is 14. So keep that in your notes handy. Nate, thank you very much for being here this week. Really appreciate it. As always, great insights. Appreciate you having you on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, Nate.
We'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Bye, Felicia.